Welcome to the debate.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Before we dive in, we just want to welcome everyone to NFL Nexus. We are all about dynamic, fun, and interactive football analysis here. So please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment on what you thought.
Absolutely. And if you want to take it a step further, become a channel member and get exclusive content and perks. Click the join button below. We'd love to have you.
Right, exactly. Click that join button. Okay, so let's get right into the material today because we are looking at the Indianapolis Colts, and it's a team that is honestly fielding one of the most fascinating architectural dichotomies in the league right now.
Oh, 100%. It's a complete clash of ideologies.
It really is. I mean, in a league that is just obsessed with the future, where speed, space, and these positionless weapons are heralded as the ultimate cheat codes. The Colts are entering a massive 2026 season, betting heavily on a philosophy that is over a century old.
Right. The old 300-pound men moving other 300-pound men against their will.
Exactly. It's pure physics. But then, simultaneously, they are fielding one of the most futuristic, positionless offensive weapons in the sport. Recent league-wide executive polling has highlighted this exact tension at the heart of the franchise. They basically have two very different team-building ideologies functioning under one roof.
And that dichotomy is exactly the central disagreement we are exploring today. We're drawing this directly from the latest off-season material. The central question is, what is the true engine of the Colts' status as an AFC South threat?
Right. Is it rooted in their traditional investment in unyielding trench dominance?
Or is their success actually driven by the modern evolution of versatile, positionless hybrid weapons?
So I will be arguing that foundational trench dominance embodied by veterans like Quentin Nelson and Grover Stewart creates the structural baseline that dictates the terms of engagement. Basically, physical superiority, not just, schematic trickery, is the primary driver of the Colts' success.
And I will be taking the contrasting position. While the trenches certainly provide a necessary floor for any football team, obviously, the true catalyst that elevates the Colts into a modern contender is the deployment of versatile geometric mismatches.
Mismatches that you think matter more than the offensive line?
Oh, absolutely. That schematic advantage is perfectly represented by the immediate top-tier emergence of tight end Tyler Warren.
Okay, well, let me lay out the groundwork for my position first, because I think we have to start where every single football play actually begins, right? The point of attack.
Sure.
At its core, my argument is that football ultimately reduces to physics. It is about leverage, it's about mass, and it's about control. You just cannot execute high-level offensive or defensive schemes if you are being physically displaced at the line of scrimmage.
Well,
Just look at Quentin Nelson. He is now 30 years old, he's entering his 9th year in the league, and he is still ranked by NFL executives as the league's second-best interior offensive lineman.
Behind Trey Smith, yeah.
Right, sitting only behind Trey Smith. Nelson is the absolute heart and soul of the Colts offense, and his floor is astounding. 8 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pro nods, 2 second-team honors, and only 4 missed games in his entire career.
Look. His resume is historic. I'm not denying that. But I have to push back on the relevance of that resume in the context of the modern era. We aren't playing football in 2019 anymore.
Physics still apply in 2026, though.
They do, but dominating the A-gap doesn't matter nearly as much if the opposing offense is spreading you out and throwing the ball in 2.2 seconds. I hear the physics argument, but I come at it from a different way.
Okay, let's hear it.
I agree that trench power is necessary, right? You cannot play NFL football with a substandard line. But traditional static trench dominance is no longer sufficient to win championships. The game has moved to space.
But space doesn't just magically appear, it has to be created.
Yeah, and it is created by schematic unpredictability, which brings me to Tyler Warren's astonishing rookie campaign. That campaign is the ultimate proof of concept for the Colts.
He did have an incredible year.
Astonishing. After just 1 year in the league, NFL personnel evaluators ranked Warren as the number 5 tight end in the entire NFL. Some votes even placed him as high as number 3.
Right, which is rare for a rookie.
Exactly. And it's not because he's just blocking well in the trenches. Warren put up 76 receptions, 817 yards, and 4 touchdowns in his first year because his impact is systemic.
Systemic how, though?
Well, he has the ability to line up at the traditional Y alignment and maul a defensive end in the run game on first down. And then, on second down, he flexes out and operates as a 250-pound power slot receiver running the seam.
Which is great, but
That dual threat capability fundamentally breaks traditional defensive rules. A left guard, even one as phenomenal as Quentin Nelson, simply cannot force a defense to declare its intentions before the snap the way Warren does.
okay, we need to unpack this because we are throwing around terms like systemic impact and schematic unpredictability. From my perspective, we are really debating two very different definitions of offensive gravity.
Gravity, right? How a single player impacts an opposing defense.
Exactly. You were talking about pre-snap movement, but I am talking about post-snap inevitability. Quentin Nelson single-handedly engineers the success of the Colts running game, which is the actual engine of this offense.
I mean, it's an important part of it, sure.
It's the engine. Let me point to a very specific sequence from the recent Raiders game that perfectly illustrates this traditional gravity. The Colts called 3 specific run plays for Jonathan Taylor, explicitly designed to run behind a pulling Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, I remember that drive.
They went 3 for 3 on those concepts.
Right, because the physics of a pulling Nelson in the open field is a terrifying proposition for a linebacker. I get that. But how does that compare to dictating the entire defensive personnel before the ball is even snapped?
Because it completely changes the geometry of the defense's pursuit. Let's break down how a pulling guard actually manipulates the field.
Go ahead.
When Nelson pulls, he doesn't just run into a guy. He identifies the second-level defender and mathematically eliminates that defender from the play.
Mathematically eliminates them. I love that phrasing.
It's true. On 3rd and goal in that Raiders game, Taylor ran behind Nelson for a touchdown. On 3rd and 1, he ran behind Nelson for an explosive rush. On 2nd and 6, another first down.
Sure, he's a bulldozer.
But it's more than that. When a 330-pound man moves laterally across the formation with that kind of speed, linebackers cannot take their natural pursuit angles. They have to hesitate or step up to take on the block, which forces the safeties to step down into the box to replace them.
Right, it triggers a chain reaction.
Exactly. That hesitation, that physical manipulation of the defense's run fits is what actually opens up the passing lanes for everyone else. Nelson is the load-bearing wall. You cannot build a modern, flashy offensive scheme without that structural integrity at the point of attack.
Okay, let me stop you right there. Geometric mismatch sounds great in a front office presentation, but let's talk about what that actually looks like on the turf compared to Nelson's gravity.
Okay.
I acknowledge Nelson's immense value in the run blocking game, but Nelson's gravity is strictly post-snap. He moves, and the defense reacts to his movement.
And they fail to stop it.
Sometimes, but Warren's gravity is pre-snap, and I would argue that is vastly more valuable because it dictates defensive personnel groupings before the play even begins. This is where we get into manipulating the actual hash marks and sideline constraints.
Okay, explain the mechanics of that pre-snap manipulation, because how is it more valuable than basically guaranteeing 3 yards on 3rd and 1?
Because it forces the defense into an unsolvable mathematical problem. Tyler Warren isn't just a flashy extension to your house metaphor. He's a queen on a chessboard.
A queen. Okay.
Yes, if Tyler Warren trots onto the field, the defensive coordinator has an immediate crisis. If they treat him like a traditional tight end and stay in their base defense with 3 heavy linebackers, Warren will simply flex to the slot.
Right, creating a speed mismatch.
Exactly. When he shifts outside before the snap, the defense physically cannot cover the horizontal distance in time to adjust. He runs a vertical route and easily outpaces a 240-pound linebacker down the field. He moves diagonally like a receiver.
Okay, and if the defensive coordinator counters by putting a nickel cornerback on the field to match his speed?
You bring in a 190-pound defensive back to cover him in the slot?
Right. And if they bring in that light piece, Warren aligns at the Y position attached to the tackle. He moves straight ahead like a rook and blocks that 190-pound corner into the dirt.
Well, now Jonathan Taylor is running into a light box where the defense doesn't have the mass to stop the run. That is true gravity, forcing the opponent into a lose-lose personnel decision before the center even touches the ball.
It's an impressive parlor trick. I'll give you that.
It's not a trick. The evidence from the materials supports this. The Colts' early season tear was tied directly to Warren's production. He forces the defense to be wrong by design.
Now hold on. Anyone listening who watched the Colts struggle in late 2025 is probably screaming at their steering wheel right now, pointing out that Daniel Jones' injury was the real issue with the offense slowing down, not just defensive adjustments to Warren.
And they're right. When the offense eventually slowed down later in the year, it correlated heavily with Warren's late-season regression, which was directly tied to Jones going down.
Right, so Warren isn't bulletproof.
But that just proves my point. Warren was the variable that made the offense dynamic. Without him operating at peak efficiency, the offense became predictable.
Okay, but that exact mathematical advantage Warren creates on offense, forcing the opponent to commit the wrong resources, is exactly what the Colts are trying to replicate in reverse on defense with Grover Stewart.
Grover Stewart? Really?
Yes, let's connect these concepts. You are focused on the proactive nature of offensive weapons, but I want to bring in Grover Stewart's subtle, unglamorous dominance in the trenches because it functions on the exact same principle of forcing the opponent's hand.
I mean, he's a nose tackle.
He is the reason the Colts' defense functions. Look at his 2024 numbers. Career highs with 74 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, and 3.5 sacks. Even in 2025, where he took a slight statistical step back, largely due to DeForest Buckner missing time, by the way, he still generated 53 tackles and 4 pass breakups.
Pass breakups from a nose tackle? Getting hands up in passing lanes is a vastly underrated skill, I'll admit. But I still struggle to see how a nose tackle equals a dynamic offensive weapon like Warren.
Let's look at the mechanics of it then. The material specifically highlights what evaluators are calling the Big Grove play.
Oh, I know the play.
It's not just a stat line. It's a masterclass in spatial manipulation. On one single play, from snap to whistle, Stewart uses specific leverage technique to lock out the opposing center. He doesn't just eat space, he physically drops his hips so that when the double team arrives, he creates a 600-pound roadblock.
Right.
And on this specific play, he got quick penetration, read the quarterback's eyes, got his hands up to bat the pass, and came down with a big man pick, his first career interception.
It's an incredible highlight, certainly.
But beyond the highlight reel, that mechanism, dropping the hips, anchoring against a double team, is what forces running backs to hesitate for a split second. That hesitation allows the linebackers to scrape cleanly to the ball carrier.
Sure, it helps the linebackers.
Furthermore, Stewart plugging the A-gaps and demanding 2 bodies is what will enable the rest of this defense to thrive in 2026. The Colts are fielding a secondary featuring Sauce Gardner and Charvarius Ward Sr., and edge rushers like Laiatu Latu.
That's a loaded defense.
It is, but none of those players can maximize their potential if the interior defensive line is getting washed out in the run game. If Stewart doesn't hold the point, the linebackers get blocked, the safeties have to step up, and suddenly Sauce Gardner has no over-the-top help. Stewart's stability is the absolute baseline requirement for the defense to operate.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why.
Go for it.
I completely concede Stewart's physical value as a run stuffer. Being able to anchor against 600 pounds of combined offensive linemen is a rare, elite physical trait. But defensive trench play, by its very nature, is inherently reactive.
Reactive.
Yes, you are responding to the offense's snap count, their blocking scheme, and their directional flow. Stewart stops what the offense is trying to do, but he doesn't change the rules of the game. Versatile offensive weapons like Tyler Warren are proactive. They dictate the terms of engagement.
I mean, forcing a double team dictates terms.
But a nose tackle, no matter how incredibly skilled or powerful, cannot organically force an offense to change its entire personnel grouping. Warren earned the respect of NFL evaluators so quickly precisely because he forces defenses into making those wrong decisions we just talked about.
Right.
That proactive mismatch generation is the ultimate weapon in today's NFL, whereas trench defense is just, frankly, damage control.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. You are assuming that these proactive weapons operate in a vacuum.
I'm not saying a vacuum.
This brings us to the core issue of future sustainability and roster evolution. The Colts recognize the necessity of retaining their elite foundational pieces. Ensuring a player of Quentin Nelson's caliber sticks around as he hits the open market following the postseason is the absolute highest priority for Indianapolis.
Well, they'd be crazy to let him walk.
Exactly. And why? Because versatile weapons like Tyler Warren are dependent variables.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying a top 5 tight end in the National Football League is just a passenger? That Tyler Warren is just along for the ride while the offensive line does the real work?
In a mathematical sense? Absolutely. I mean, they rely entirely on external conditions being met before their versatility even matters. Let's break down the timing of NFL passing play.
Okay, let's hear the math.
Warren needs a healthy quarterback, like Daniel Jones, to accurately deliver him the football. But more importantly, geometry requires time.
Sure.
A route developing down the seam or a complex double move from the slot takes roughly 2.5 to 3 seconds to materialize. Daniel Jones needs a clean pocket to progress through his reads, identify the mismatch, and deliver the ball. If the interior offensive line gets crushed off the snap, the quarterback is forced off his spot in 1.5 seconds.
And the play breaks down.
Exactly. The geometry doesn't matter if the physics fail. You cannot exploit a mismatch on the slot if the quarterback is on his back. Quentin Nelson and Grover Stewart are the independent variables. They create the clean environments.
I see what you're saying, but
The trenches provide the necessary time and space for the hybrid weapons to even be relevant. Therefore, building and maintaining the trenches must take philosophical precedence. Without the time created by the offensive line, your chess queen never gets to move.
I understand the logic of the time to throw mechanics, I really do. But I challenge the long-term longevity and sustainability of that model, especially for this specific roster.
Why? It's worked for 100 years.
Because let's look at the reality of the aging curve. Grover Stewart is turning 33 years old this season. Quentin Nelson is hitting 30. While their floors remain exceptionally high and their technique is flawless, their physical ceilings are largely established, and attrition in the trenches is a brutal reality.
They're still elite, though.
Right now, yes. But contrast this with Tyler Warren, who is just entering his sophomore season. He has a massive developmental ceiling ahead of him. Building around youth and mismatch versatility, especially when paired alongside an established running back and Jonathan Taylor, and a vertical threat like Alec Pierce, is the true forward-looking trajectory of the franchise.
So your argument is essentially that the window for the trench-dominant philosophy is actively closing due to age, and therefore the hybrid model has to take over.
Precisely. The modern NFL arms race is not just about holding your ground for 2.5 seconds. It is about exploiting space and schematic unpredictability over the course of a 17-game season.
But if you can't hold your ground,
If you invest your primary ideological focus and your salary cap, by the way, into players who are on the wrong side of 30, you risk becoming a static, predictable team. The defense will eventually find a way to overload your blocking schemes.
I mean, they haven't yet with Nelson.
But Warren represents the future. He is a multi-dimensional chess piece. When Daniel Jones is fully healthy, having a tight end who can act as a 6th offensive lineman on one play and a primary vertical slot receiver on the next is what keeps defensive coordinators awake at night.
It is definitely a headache.
It's more than a headache. That schematic unpredictability is the leading indicator of the Colts' future ceiling, far more than maintaining a solid floor through veteran linemen who are inching closer to the end of their primes.
Well, it is a compelling vision for the future, I'll give you that. But we have to ground this in the reality of what actually wins late in the season. You know, when the weather turns cold and the game slows down.
The playoffs are a different beast, true?
Right. So as we summarize our positions today, my stance remains that the sheer physical dominance and historic consistency of players like Quentin Nelson and Grover Stewart establish the non-negotiable baseline for the Colts' competitive viability.
The load-bearing walls.
Exactly. You can have all the schematic unpredictability and geometric advantages in the world, but if you cannot control the point of attack, convert a 3rd and 1 on the ground behind your all-pro guard, or drop your hips and stop the run on early downs with your 315-pound nose tackle, your flashy offensive weapons will be watching the game from the sideline.
Because you can't get on the field.
Right. The trenches dictate who controls the clock and who controls the physics of the game.
Fair enough. And my summary is that while physics and control will always matter, obviously, the modern NFL is an arms race won through geometric and schematic unpredictability.
The chess pieces.
Exactly. The rapid ascension of Tyler Warren into a top 5 hybrid weapon proves that the league values players who break traditional defensive rules
and force lose-lose personnel decisions.
They certainly value him highly.
Yeah, and the trenches give you a chance to compete. They keep the quarterback upright and stop the bleeding on defense. But versatile mismatches are what actually elevate a team from being simply competitive to being a championship contender. The future of the Colts roster construction should reflect this reality, prioritizing the proactive, dynamic ceiling that Warren provides over the reactive, static floor of an aging line.
Well, it is clear that the Colts present a truly fascinating case study in how to blend old-school, physical trench warfare with new-school positional flexibility.
It's a tough balancing act.
It is. The tension between the independent variables in the trenches and the dependent variables on the perimeter is incredibly complex. Ultimately, evaluating which of these philosophies matters more might depend heavily on a completely different factor that we touched on earlier, which is the health and performance of quarterback Daniel Jones in 2026.
Oh, absolutely. It all hinges on him.
Right? If he thrives and has the time to process the field, Warren's versatility will look like the key to the kingdom. But if he struggles, or if the pocket collapses too quickly, the team will have no choice but to lean entirely on Nelson and Stewart to just grind out physical victories.
Exactly. The quarterback is the central conduit through which both of these philosophies must flow. It just goes to show the immense value of looking at roster construction through multiple theoretical frameworks. There is no single correct way to build a football team.
Very true. Acknowledging the tension between creating physical space and exploiting geometric space gives us a much deeper appreciation for the nuanced decisions this front office has to make every single week.
It absolutely does. The material covering the Colts offseason provides so much more to explore regarding their ongoing evolution, and it leaves us to continuously analyze which philosophy, the unyielding structural physics of the foundation, or the brilliant, unpredictable geometry of the modern weapons, truly builds a championship contender. Thank you for joining us on The Debate.